Have you ever sensed that something is amiss in your life yet struggled to articulate exactly what it is? It can feel as though, despite your best efforts to improve, you are continually drawn back into the same mistakes, destructive patterns, and cycles of frustration. This might be the inner voice that sabotages you at critical moments, persuading you to surrender right when you are on the brink of achieving something meaningful. It could also manifest as irrational anger that flares up unexpectedly in situations that, in hindsight, seem trivial. Or perhaps it's that envy you've tried to suppress, gnawing at you when you witness someone achieving what you secretly desire. There may also be a paralyzing fear of failure that drives you to hide behind excuses or procrastination. Unbeknownst to you, this is not mere coincidence. There exists a force lurking in the shadows of your mind, shaping your personality, actions, and choices. A force you've spent your lifetime ignoring, yet it has never ceased to exert its influence. Carl Jung referred to this as the shadow, the hidden segment of your psyche where you bury everything you prefer not to acknowledge about yourself. Your repressed desires, weaknesses, feelings of shame, and darkest emotions. The dilemma is that what you ignore will control you. The shadow does not vanish simply because you choose to ignore it. Quite the opposite. The more you attempt to reject it, the more it expands in the depths of your mind, patiently waiting for the opportune moment to surface. The shadow manifests during unexpected outbursts, when you push away loved ones and later wonder why you feel isolated, or when you harshly judge others without realizing you are projecting your own fears onto them. Self-sabotage, failing intentionally, and ultimately convincing yourself that you are not good enough to truly try, are also products of the shadow. Jung posited that until you bring the unconscious to consciousness, it will steer your life, leading you to label your experiences as fate. If you choose to evade your shadow, it will persist in manipulating events behind the scenes while you believe everything is merely chance. However, if you possess the courage to look inward and confront what you've consistently avoided, you can transform your shadow into your most powerful ally. This video will guide you on this challenging journey, which, while uncomfortable, is essential if you're serious about breaking the cycle of self-sabotage and reclaiming your life. From the moment of your birth, you were conditioned regarding what emotions are acceptable and which ones are not. Early on, you learned that certain emotions should be displayed while others must be concealed. You may not even recall the phrases that shaped you, such as "stop crying," "don't be weak," "don't be angry," "be a good person," or "don't be selfish." These messages gradually led to the repression of entire aspects of your identity. What became of your anger, sadness, and the urge to assert yourself? Those impulses that didn't align with society's image of the ideal person were not eradicated. Instead, they were shoved deep into your unconscious, forming what Jung termed the shadow. This hidden part of your personality stores all the feelings, desires, and impulses you've rejected to gain societal acceptance. The shadow is not an abstract concept. It exists within you, operating covertly within your mind. Whenever you feel uncomfortable around someone who exudes confidence, it could be a sign that you have repressed your own desire to express yourself. If you harshly criticize someone seeking recognition, it may stem from a buried desire within you to be seen. When you experience envy towards someone's success, it might reflect your own suppressed ambition, perhaps instilled by someone who taught you that wanting too much is arrogance. As you move through life, the part others see is merely the tip of the iceberg. The more substantial part of your true self remains hidden beneath the surface, concealed even from your own awareness. Ignoring the shadow does not mean it ceases to act. On the contrary, the more you deny its existence, the more it manifests destructively. This can show up as irrational fears, a tendency to repeat mistakes, unexplained resentments, and toxic cycles that feel endless. The pressing question is not whether you possess a shadow, but rather to what extent it controls your life without your awareness. In the following segments, we will explore the subtle yet destructive ways your shadow influences you without your realization. Have you ever questioned why certain patterns seem to recur in your life? Why, despite your efforts to change, do you always find yourself back at square one? Why do you feel inexplicable anger, envy, or fear? These experiences arise because your shadow is very much awake and in charge, often without your conscious awareness. The shadow doesn't attack outright, it operates subtly, manipulating your emotions and choices silently, like a ghost distorting your view of reality. You may believe you are in control of your decisions, yet you are often guided by hidden impulses that were buried long ago. One common manifestation of the shadow is through projection. Have you ever felt an unreasonable hatred for someone? Or criticized someone with excessive fervor without a valid reason? This behavior occurs because we often recognize in others what we are unwilling to acknowledge in ourselves. For example, a person who has learned to suppress their ambition may harbor irrational disdain for those who pursue success. Additionally, a person who fears their own aggressiveness may resent those who are direct. Instead of recognizing these attributes within themselves, they project them onto others. Another destructive mechanism of the shadow is self-sabotage, which can manifest as creating obstacles to your own growth, procrastinating during critical moments, or giving up prematurely. The shadow does not stop affecting you internally, it also infiltrates your relationships. Have you noticed how some individuals constantly attract the same toxic partners? This occurs because we unconsciously project our traumas and gravitate towards situations that reinforce our deepest fears. If you carry a shadow filled with feelings of rejection, you might find yourself drawn to individuals who confirm that rejection. Those with a shadow of insecurity may connect with people who leave them doubting their self-worth. Alarmingly, the shadow can even usurp your identity, leading you to believe that your way of acting and feeling is entirely natural, all the while shaped by a history of repressed experiences. If the shadow holds so much power over you, how can you discern its signs? How can you tell if it is your shadow manipulating your life instead of your true self? In the next segment, we will examine the unmistakable signs that indicate your shadow is pulling the strings without your awareness. When you recognize these signs, it will become impossible to continue pretending that your shadow does not exist. If your life feels stuck in a cycle of repetition, if you consistently experience frustration, anxiety, or an inability to change certain behaviors, it is possible that your shadow is in control without your knowledge. But how can you confirm this? The first clear sign of the shadow's dominance is constant projection. Have you noticed that some individuals irritate you more than usual? That certain traits in others trigger an exaggerated emotional response? This phenomenon occurs because the shadow compels you to see in others what you refuse to acknowledge in yourself. For instance, someone who has repressed their need for attention may feel irrational disdain towards self-expressive individuals. Another indication of the shadow's control is persistent self-sabotage. Have you ever been on the verge of achieving a goal only to have everything unravel as if you were actively digging your own grave? This occurs because the shadow fears change. If, at some point in your life, you were taught to believe that you do not deserve success, love, or happiness, that repressed belief will continue to operate in the background of your mind, subtly ensuring you do not surpass those limits. As a result, many people abandon their efforts just as they are about to achieve something significant. The third sign of an uncontrolled shadow is the recurring attraction to toxic relationships. If you find yourself consistently involved with individuals who devalue or exploit you, this is not mere coincidence. Something within you is unconsciously seeking this dynamic. Should you have experienced rejection during childhood, you may spend your life searching for people who reinforce that rejection. Additionally, if you were taught to suppress your anger, you may attract partners who take advantage of your patience. Another potent signal that the shadow is dominant in your life is an irrational fear of judgment. Are you terrified of being criticized? Do you avoid exposing yourself for fear of appearing ridiculous? If so, your shadow likely harbors repressed shame. Perhaps you were conditioned to view mistakes as unacceptable and learned that being authentic means risking rejection. The outcome is a life lived defensively, always trying to appease others and minimize the chance of being perceived as wrong. This fear is not rooted in the present, it is a remnant of the past. a shadow of all that has been denied and buried within you. Finally, a telling sign of the shadow's presence is an inexplicable emptiness. Have you ever felt a void in your life, as if something essential is missing, even when everything appears fine? This feeling arises because throughout your life, you have had to suppress parts of yourself to gain societal acceptance, leading to the repression of your true desires and ambitions. Recognizing these signs does not indicate that all hope is lost. On the contrary, acknowledging the shadow is the first step toward reclaiming control over your life. The real danger is not having a shadow. We all have one. The danger lies in continuing to live without awareness of it. But what happens if you persist in ignoring your shadow? What occurs when it becomes so repressed that it erupts in unpredictable and destructive ways? In the following segment, we will delve into the consequences of denial and why neglecting your shadow may be the gravest error of your life. The shadow you ignore does not vanish. It accumulates, intensifies, and weighs heavily on you. The more you deny it, the more it finds ways to manifest. And if you do not take control, these manifestations can be catastrophic. You might spend years pretending that certain emotions and impulses do not exist, but inevitably, everything you've repressed will surface, and you will be left to face the repercussions. One of the greatest dangers of ignoring your shadow is that it always finds a way to escape. If you suppress your anger, it may erupt unexpectedly, destroying relationships and opportunities. If you conceal your deepest desires, they may manifest in self-destructive behaviors such as addiction or compulsion. If you bury your trauma, it may emerge as anxiety crises, panic attacks, or even physical symptoms that elude medical explanation. The shadow does not solely affect your internal landscape, it shapes your external reality as well. If you fail to acknowledge your fear of abandonment, you may find yourself clinging to toxic relationships merely to avoid the pain of loneliness. If you deny your ambition, you may unconsciously sabotage your professional endeavors, convincing yourself that success is not meant for you. If you suppress your desires, you may become ensnared in silent frustrations, unsure of why your life feels unsatisfactory. The most significant danger of all is that if you do not integrate your shadow, it may ultimately take full control of your life. Have you ever encountered someone who appears consumed by resentment, perpetually blaming others, harboring silent anger, and perpetually defensive? These individuals did not arrive at this state by accident. They have spent their lives repressing their pain, and eventually their shadows grew strong enough to take control. The result is an unending cycle of resentment, fear, and self-sabotage. Perhaps the most disturbing consequence is depersonalization, the feeling of being a stranger in your own body, disconnected from your true self. This disconnection occurs because by repressing your shadow, you also suppress fundamental elements of your being, striving only to present the good side and eliminating any trace of darkness. Over time, this process results in a profound sense of emptiness, as if something vital is missing, yet you cannot identify what it is. As you contemplate how to escape this cycle and cease being a victim of your own shadow, the next segment will unveil the strategies to transform your shadow from a hidden adversary into a powerful ally, enabling you to take control of your life. Now that you comprehend the risks associated with ignoring your shadow, the crucial question arises: how do you illuminate it? How do you stop being manipulated by these hidden facets of your psyche and instead harness them to your benefit? Integrating the shadow does not mean annihilating it, as that is impossible. What Jung teaches us is that the shadow is not our enemy. Instead, it embodies essential parts of who we are, dormant forces that can become our greatest assets if we learn how to access them. The first step in integrating the shadow is to consciously acknowledge it. This involves being cognizant of your emotional triggers. When something or someone provokes an exaggerated reaction in you, pause and ask yourself, what does this reveal about me? Rather than blaming others, turn your gaze inward. If someone irritates you due to their arrogance, consider whether they are merely expressing a confidence you wish to embody but have repressed. If you feel contempt for those who pursue success, is there not a part of you that yearns for that very thing but has been stifled by limiting beliefs? The second step is to permit yourself to experience what has been denied. If you have spent your life pretending not to feel anger, it is time to confront that feeling without fear. This does not mean lashing out at others. Rather, it entails sitting with your emotions and acknowledging, yes, I feel anger. Yes, I feel envy. Yes, I am afraid, and that is perfectly okay. The shadow only dominates you when you attempt to deny its existence, but when you confront it directly, it relinquishes the control it held over you. An effective tool for this process is reflective writing. Grab a notebook and start recording your deepest, uncensored thoughts. Ask yourself, what aspects of myself do I reject? What behaviors in others do I judge harshly? What fears do I harbor about what others might discover about me? Writing about these topics may be uncomfortable, but it is also liberating. By naming your shadow, you bring it into the light of consciousness, and that which is conscious can be managed. Another vital approach is visualization and internal dialogue. Jung suggested that we communicate with our shadow as if it were a separate entity. Close your eyes and envision this repressed part of you. What does it look like? What does it wish to convey? Often when we give voice to our shadow, we find it is not a monster, but a neglected part of ourselves yearning to be heard. Integrating the shadow is not a quick fix. It is an ongoing journey that requires bravery and honesty. The key insight here is that your darkness need not be your adversary. Repressed anger can evolve into strength, fear can morph into wisdom, and desire can transform into creativity. All that has been denied can be repurposed as fuel for your growth. Now that you have insights on how to begin integrating your shadow, the final question arises: why is this so rare? Why do so few individuals possess the courage to explore their inner landscape? At this juncture, you fully understand that the shadow resides within you, whether you acknowledge it or not. You can choose to deny its existence, pretending that your fears, insecurities, and repressed impulses do not impact your life. Alternatively, you can make the brave choice, a choice few dare to embrace, to look within and reclaim control of your psyche. However, it's crucial to grasp that most people will never undertake this work. Many will continue to repeat the same mistakes, perpetuating cycles of self-sabotage while attributing their issues to the outside world. They will remain trapped in the past, nurturing resentments and projecting their frustrations onto others, convincing themselves that fate or society holds the key to their failures. But you possess a different awareness. If you've made it this far and followed this journey, it suggests that something within you recognizes the necessity for change. You are weary of being confined by unconscious patterns, exhausted from feeling controlled by forces you do not comprehend. You are poised to take the courageous step that few dare, integrating your shadow and discovering who you truly are. However, do not be misled. This path is far from easy. Confronting your shadow entails relinquishing the comforting illusion of knowing everything about yourself. It demands facing past pains, confronting uncomfortable truths, and acknowledging that much of what transpires in your life is your responsibility. This process may be uncomfortable, yet it is the only genuine path to liberation. Now, the pressing question for you is, what will you do with this information? Will you absorb it and continue your life as if nothing has changed, or will you actively apply it? If any part of this video resonated with you, I invite you to share in the comments what aspects of your shadow you have realized you've been overlooking. Have you noticed recurring patterns in your life that can be attributed to this? Sharing your experiences is already a significant first step toward bringing them to consciousness. Moreover, do not stop here. The next video will delve even deeper into another crucial piece of this puzzle. If you are truly committed to evolving, you cannot afford to overlook this information. Continue watching, for this knowledge may be the missing key to transforming your life.